We always try to get people to understand that they need to always use their health insurance. That's one of my pet peeves at the firm is that people want to say, well, I want the other guys in automobile insurance to pay my bills. Well, they will eventually, but we need you to use your health insurance in the meantime so that you don't have collection agencies coming out.
And many places say, well, you can't have Medicare or Medicaid. It was an auto accident, or you can't use your health insurance, which is an absolute lie.
Right.
If they tell you that, they're doing it, and the reason they're doing that is because they have a year to file it on your insurance, your health insurance or Medicare or Medicaid. And if they could find another way to get more money, for let's say from your auto insurance,
right,
where they get dollar for dollar,
right,
as opposed to a health insurance may only pay 20% and they have to write off the rest.
Correct.
So it's just a little game they play. But your health insurance has to pay your automobile medical bills.
Yep.
Has to.
Well, with one caveat, you have to use up any medical payments that you have on your policy before Blue Cross or whoever you have. If it's a private health insurance, Medicare will go ahead and start paying, Medicaid will start paying. But if you have a private policy, then you have to use up the med pay that's on your vehicle first, and then they'll start paying. And a lot of people don't understand that, so the bills just sit. They've been filed, but they haven't been paid because Blue Cross needs to know.
And they'll send you a letter.
They'll send you a letter.
And you've got to fill that letter out for them to pay.
That's right.
So once you get that letter, and we help people fill that out. Right. It's not complicated, but we help them fill it out. If you're not used to auto insurance, then it is kind of complicated. But we help you fill that out, because if you don't fill that out, then you're not going to get paid by your health insurance is not going to get paid.
Right.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest misconceptions is people have, if they've never been in an accident, is they think they're in the wreck and they think the other party's insurance is going to start paying everything immediately. And that's not how a liability claim
You're right. They'll go to the hospital and say, that guy's health and automobile insurance going to pay. Bail them. And they get that bill, and the automobile insurance company gets that bill and says, we're not going to pay that.
That's right.
They're not going to pay anything until you're willing to sign a release.
Correct.
They don't have to pay anything in advance. They
can write
one check, a lump for everything.
That's exactly right. You've got a property damage claim, which you can get resolved, but then the bodily injury claim, which is your medical bills, your lost wages, your pain and suffering, is exactly like you said. It's at the end. Excuse me. It's at the end, and it is literally either put your name on that release, or if you're not, ultimately you'll have a trial. And the jury can decide.
And I will tell you that most insurance companies, not all, but most insurance companies are the worst I've ever seen in the history of practicing law, where they won't pay even the medical bills. And you have to fight them, and you have to really do some really creative things to get cases settled or relitigate them.
Right.
And so the whole idea now is that people are really at the mercy of these insurance companies, and they have figured out ways not to pay.
And most of them aren't real.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They're not real ways that they can't pay. They'll claim that that's a real way to not pay, but it's not. Not in Mississippi.
Yeah,
and it's contrary to Mississippi law.
That's right.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I mean, you explain that.
Well, Mississippi says that if you go to court and you've got bills, they're prima facie evidence that those bills were correct.
Mm-hmm.
That there's nothing, and the only way that an insurance company can come in and say that a bill is incorrect is to have an expert come in and say this particular bill was overcharged. If they say this doctor or this particular institution charged too much, then and we can say that that's incorrect, then they can try to overcome that presumption that bill was correct. But they can't just broadly say all of these bills were overcharged. That nobody can do that. And so when you go to court, unless the expert can say this hospital overcharged and this is why,
mm-hmm.
this doctor overcharged and this is why, this chiropractor overcharged, this physical therapist overcharged, this orthopedist overcharged, and have evidence to back that up. They can't just do that. They just can't say, well, we looked at all the bills, all $18,000 worth of bills, and we think that they shouldn't have been paid. They shouldn't have been but $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're getting. That's the ridiculous thing that we're having to deal with is that they just say, well, the bill's too high. And I say, well, based on what? And that's what we're talking about.
That's right.
Well, they'll say, well, in comparison to local other people. Who?
That's right.
Well, in comparison to other people. And then they bring out there's this company out there, and they use what insurance companies pay, not what the doctors charge, what insurance companies pay as their comparison. And it's not in particular to the bill that the patient got. It's in comparison to all bills.
Correct.
So it has no logical bearing to the particular case that I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's like they're comparing an apple to a zucchini. I mean, it's they're not anywhere. There's no rhyme or reason to it because there's no specificity. Yeah. We got a text in that I'll throw to you too, and it says, "Can you please discuss?" They said that anti-balance billing, or balance billing. What is that? What's the law in Mississippi on balance billing?
Well, this is something that the legislature passed. It was kind of hidden in the bill, and it said that if a person has health insurance, and health insurance pays a certain amount, that the medical doctor or hospital or whoever it is, chiropractor, whoever it is, accepts the payment from the insurance company, that then they can't go get the difference between what the health insurance company paid and what they wanted to bill from the client, from the patient. Now, they can charge them for deductibles, they can charge them for copay amounts, but they can't say, we charge $10,000, the insurance paid us $6,000, you owe us another $4,000, unless that's except for the part of that might be copay or deductible. So they can't do it, and it's codified. Now, there's no what we call teeth in the bill. There's nothing that we can say we can sue you for doing that, but they can't sue you either. Now, the main thing that this comes up with is these exorbitant, unbelievably high charges for air ambulance bills. Sometimes we have people who are picked up and they're badly hurt, and so they get air ambulance to the hospital, and that's a good service. But when a bill comes in and it's anywhere from $35,000 to $85,000, and their health insurance says, well, we'll pay you, but we're only going to pay you $10,000 for that air ambulance ride, then that other part, for the air ambulance to come in and say, well, we want our other $20,000 or our other $75,000 from you, then this law prevents them from doing that. Now, the only way that that I understand that can be used is to go to the insurance commissioner, and they can tell them to lay off and leave us alone.
One thing we do as a service is that, if the hospital or a medical clinic knows of health insurance and they don't file it within one calendar year, then we make them write it off.
Right.
We that's not something that our client should pay because they failed to do what they were supposed to do.
Right. And one of the things that we do at the office is, as a case ages, sometimes it takes over a year for a case to get people to get done with their treatment. But as a case gets to the point where their bills have become a year old, we all go back and look and make sure that all of them have been filed. If the person has some kind of sort of health insurance, that they've all been filed. And if they haven't been filed, we send a letter to the medical provider and say, my client has health insurance and you need to file your bill. And if you don't, you may have to write this off. What we found, and it's a bad thing, but what we found is a lot of times that when a person has been in a wreck, and they come in, and even if they don't come in on an ambulance, they come in and they say, I was in a wreck yesterday and I need to be seen by the emergency room. When that bill comes in, what we assume is happening, and I can only say we assume it's happening because it seems like it happens a lot, that bill gets pulled and it doesn't get sent to the health insurance, even if they have health insurance. And it goes to a collection agency who sits back and waits in hopes that we or the client, if they're not represented, will pay them in the full amount of the bill from the settlement instead of taking what the health insurance company would pay. And so when we put them on notice, we send them a letter and say, you are on notice that this client has health insurance. That puts them in a position that if they fail to file that bill within that 1 year, then they do have to write that off. And I've had it where there's been some really big bills, and we've warned them over and over, please file that bill. And it didn't get filed, so I'm sorry, but you got to write it off. And that's, and I've talked to the people from the big health insurance companies that we're talking about, and they say that the reason they want that bill filed, they want it filed because they don't want the hospital to come in at the end of the year and say, oh, look at all the bills that we didn't get paid for. We need a raise. Mm-hmm. Well, if you didn't file your bill with us and get the money from us, how can you complain that you lost money? That's their point. So we want to get that bill sent to the insurance company, the health insurance company, so that it gets paid.
And those collection agencies, they're pretty smart, and it doesn't work. They send letters to the auto insurance company,
right,
alleging a lien on the bill.
Right.
Well, we don't have a medical lien statute in the state of Mississippi.
Right.
But the insurance companies don't want to be sued or be involved in the resolution of that, so we have to fight with the collection agency and the agents, the medical agencies, to say, look, there is no lien.
Right.
There is no such thing in Mississippi.
And they know that. And at the end and when we send them that letter, it's amazing that a month before that deadline comes that they have to file it, it suddenly goes from the collection agency back to the hospital to collect it.